How's it, data firm? Welcome to the first episode of our Excel fundamentals for the data analyst course. I know that I promised to deliver this course, so this is going to be the first episode. So this is just going to be a brief introduction of what to expect in the course. Not much into getting into the detail, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit on the history of where Excel actually comes from, and just give you guys a tour on how actually Excel looks like and where you can get certain things. I will be covering sort of like the table of contents on the different modules that we're going to be covering and the detailed information that we're going to be looking at for each of the modules. So now let's get into it. So as you can see that in terms of the modules that we are actually covering, we're going to be doing an introduction to Excel, and we're going to look at what is Excel, navigating the interface, and also going through the different ribbons. So this is what we will be doing actually today. So that's literally today's video. Module 2, we're going to be looking at loading and cleaning data. Now we're going to look at importing data, sorting it, validation, replace, and find. So everything you need to know how to use clean data using Excel. Module three is going to be essential formulas. So now this is where we're getting deeper into the Excel formulas that you can actually use to do advanced calculations or any of the fancy items that you'd like to do. So VLOOKUPs, XLOOKUPs, and all of that, that will be covered. Now, the other thing that we're going to be doing is pivot tables. Now, I know a lot of people who work with data normally are scared with, especially people that don't use Excel, that are genuinely scared with using pivot tables. It's actually very simple, but we're going to get into the detail and help you guys understand it. We're going to look at Power Pivot. So this is just taking pivot tables a little bit further, just to bring in new features and all of that. The other thing that we're going to be looking at is data visualizations using Excel. Now, we all know that Power BI is the king for data visualizations, but that does not mean you cannot do any visualization using Excel. So you can actually do it. So if you need to create simple visualizations, you can actually do it using Excel. Now, the last thing we're going to be doing here is a project. So I'm just going to move this over here. So what we're going to be doing here is the project. So the project is really going to be an end-to-end view of me taking a retail data set, cleaning it, doing all the amazing analysis, and actually getting insights, whether it's building pivot tables or any of the interesting insights that you guys would want to see. So without wasting any time, let's get into today's agenda, which is the introduction into Excel. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Okay, okay. Now, in terms of the introduction into Excel, I thought I should give you guys a little bit of a background because I think the best way to actually understand what Excel is to look at where Excel actually comes from. What problem did Excel actually solve? Because I think in this day and age, people generally don't see, they know the value, but they don't know how difficult it was back then. So maybe seeing how far we've come would actually give people a better idea of what exactly is Excel and what problem does it actually solve. So obviously I used Excel just to put together this. So you can actually do this on Excel. You can change colors, you can import images, and you can also align your dates in this format. Right, cool. So let's look at the first event. So early on in the 1978, 1979, Dan Brecklin, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, was asked to do an analysis by the Harvard Business School. Now he had to do this either manually or using a mainframe program. Now, if you guys have seen mainframe program, you'll understand that this would be extremely difficult and actually tough to actually do. Now, at the time, there was actually no spreadsheet, right? So that's when he realized that surely there was a way to do this better. And he imagined a classroom with an electronic board as well as an electronic chalk because he wanted a way to actually write the numbers and be able to see them as they are and maybe do some sums, subtractions, and all of that on the numbers themselves. So through that frustration, a year later, Bracklin and Bob actually created VisiCalc. So VisiCalc was actually the first spreadsheet software that was created. It was literally a game changer in this space because this then led to other development and you would actually understand that from here, Excel actually was possible through this invention. Now, 2 years later, another company called Lotus 123 added charts and allowed for better performance and allowed for much more exciting insights to be taken away just using a spreadsheet and all of that. So graphs and all of that was non-existent at the time, but they brought this. But what happened is that they still lacked a graphical user interface. So like a place for you to actually interact with the data as we actually do in today's day and age. So there was literally no interface that they could actually utilize. And then what happened is that a few years later, in 1985, Microsoft came into the game, and they were the first ones to actually introduce a graphical interface, sort of like spreadsheet, making spreadsheets user friendly, and more people started to adopt this. And I think that's actually what led to their dominance in the space. Because after that, you can see that like a few years later, in 1987, they launched Excel 2 on the Windows. Before it was actually launched on the Macintosh, but now they could actually launch it on Windows, and they were competing with Lotus, the company that was the first to sort of bring better Excel sort of spreadsheets and all of that. A few years later, in the 1990s, Excel started to dominate the industry as they started adding more advanced formulas and charts. In 2007, they added ribbons. So these are the things like your home insert. So they made this much more intuitive and much more user friendly. And that really made them to not have any competitor at all. And then in 2010, they actually added cloud and collaboration. So this meant that I couldn't just work on the data set alone. I could actually bring other people to participate in actually building, let's say, getting analysis. So you can actually have more people working on one spreadsheet. And then in 2020, in 2020, basically what happened is that they added much more exciting features like your X lookup was actually not there. Don't worry, we're going to be covering what exactly X lookup is. And then they started to integrate with Power BI, and Excel then become a very powerful tool. So now you can literally just input numbers, get a sum, multiply numbers, format the numbers. You can do so many exciting things using Excel. And back then, doing a basic analysis was really close to impossible because you couldn't put your number or your data into one place where you can actually do your analysis in that place. So that is really what the problem Excel solved, a place to actually work with data. And if you think about in today's day and age, majority of the data that we actually use, it's all on Excel. So that really shows the importance of Excel and why it's actually important to learn Excel for data analysis, because you're going to be interacting with data on a day-to-day basis. Now, I've got this data set. I've already shared this. If you want to download this, the link is already in the description of the video. So now I'm going to be taking you guys through like what exactly is Excel and how exactly you can actually interact with it and the different places you can actually click, right? So this is just a tour on Excel, not going into like the technical sort of like detail. So what can you actually do on Excel? So you can see that over here, you've got your ribbons. So your ribbons is how they group certain activities. So if things are related to each other, they would be grouped based on those ribbons. And if you click on a ribbon, you can see different things you can actually do. So the features in each ribbon would most definitely appear over here. So these are the different things that you can actually do using a ribbon. So on the home page, this is where you get everything you need to format your data, changing colors, changing fonts. You can wrap your information. You can convert numbers into currencies and all of that. So there's really is a lot of things that you can actually do. So this is where you format your data to look in the manner that you actually want. So nothing really hectic, but just a good place for you to do some basic formatting of your data. Insert now, this allows you to bring things that are non-existent sort of in your data set. So this is where you can also create your pivot tables. So if you guys are wondering about pivot tables, this is where you actually find them. You can use forms, you can bring pictures, you can add tick boxes. So literally you can just click on an empty space and just add a click box and all of that. So you can bring charts and all those fancy things. Draw is not really important for data analysis, honestly. I don't think it's that important for data analysis, just for drawing and whatever fancy things you want to do. Page layout is more on the look and feel of your pages, where you do your alignment and all of that. It's not really important for data analysis. Another very important part for data analysts is the formulas ribbon. So this is where you get all your fancy formulas, and you can add Python, you can add all these amazing things. Now, the other one that's very important for data analysts is the data, right? So data is where you want to do all your sort of like modifications, right? You can bring in data sets, you can actually filter, You can all do validations on your data. There's a lot of things you can do. You can even do some sort of high level analysis. That's more like an AI feature that actually comes with Excel. There's like what if analysis. So this allows you to do some forecasting, grouping, and all of that. So this is really where you want to spend your time as a data analyst because it's got all the fancy features that you genuinely need. Now, review is not that important, but if you want to do your spelling check, your translation, you can actually come over here. View also not too important, but this is where you can do some formatting, right? You can remove grid lines and it looks very clean. So you can actually do that if you want to. Automate, this is a very important feature because if there's certain repetitive tasks that you do, if you're always summing your numbers, if you're always doing a count, you can actually create custom scripts and add them into this automate. This allows you to automate certain things. If there's very basic things like summing up that you normally do on a day to day, you can actually automate them using this feature. Help, we generally do not care about help, it's not that important. But a very important feature, if you guys noted, I did highlight that we will be covering power pivots. So power pivots are just sort of like your pivot tables on steroids. They actually allow you to do much more advanced analysis using pivot tables, so you can create data models and all of that. But we will be covering each and every single thing on Excel that is important for the data analyst in the upcoming videos. So you don't genuinely have to worry about it. But all you need to know is that if you're looking for certain things, they would be grouped based on this. And depending on what you want to do, you will find it in one of those sort of categories. There's more things that you can actually do. You can add different tabs and all of that. But I think at a high level, this is more of a very good tool in you understanding what is Excel used for, what is the importance of this tool really, and where you can get the different features. So on the next coming videos, I'm going to be taking you guys through the detail on how you can actually clean data using Excel.